All right, Mr. H here, and we are back for part 3 of our Neon mini-series. We're talking about the 97 Neon engines that we're working on. If you happen to like these videos, please hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel. Hopefully there will be many more videos to follow, and hopefully you'll enjoy them just as you have with previous videos. Now, topic for today. Here's most likely where most of the groups are going to be, because remember, boom, you're in groups. Most of you are going to be in the process of most likely either taking the engine away from the transmission, so you're splitting the two apart, and putting them onto the stand. And others might be working on cylinder head arrangements and work and reconstruction because we only have 3 engine hoists to go around. So half of you probably working on cylinder heads, the other half's probably working on getting this giant contraption to safely lift the engines up and put them down on the ground while you split the transmission away. A few things before you split the transmission. You should look for that spec that was kind of random and not very specific. We're talking about flywheel bolts or flex plate bolts. Understand we have bolts that hold that flex plate or flywheel onto the back of the crankshaft, but we also have 3 to 4 bolts that go through the flex plate or flywheel that actually attach to the torque converter or clutch. Most of the transmissions, if not all of them that you have, are going to be automatics, so you might have bolts that actually attach to the torque converter. Where that would be located is if you have your starter off, so that guy right there, the starter would be here. There. So the starter would be there. If you do not have your starter on, you'll probably be able to see if you have bolts or not connecting to the torque converter, assuming that it is there. Assuming. So what you have to do is, if you can, some engines are C's, turn the crankshaft with maybe just the bolt to get those bolts out, because if you do split the transmission, not a big deal, but the torque converter is going to stay attached while you take the rest of the transmission out. It can be somewhat of a headache. So when you're looking in here, you'll be able to see the flex plate. You'll be able to see, if you turn this, if there's any bolts, you have to take them out so you can actually split this away. Now, let's talk about how we safely get from being on that to on the ground. When you get one of these, we call them cherry pickers, the first thing you got to do is get a game plan together for where you're going to put the chain. Some groups may have more than one chain, which is great. Others may only have one. What I would advise you guys to do is to find somewhere near the front of the engine on one side, and then on the opposite side, find somewhere on the transmission. Because the transmission is pretty heavy. So when you start lifting up, it's going to want to tilt back. So your best bet is to go from one side on the engine and then actually have the chain wrap around to the other side. So it's almost an even distribution of weight. Once you get that far, call me over so I can deem the whole entire rigging safe. Because there is a couple of things where I might say, hey, this maybe is not the strongest area of the block to hoist on, or maybe we should put this chain around this port. Just make sure you get me before you go any further. From there, I will supervise as you actually lift up the chain that's attached to the engine and take the engine and get it pretty much taut. So you're going to have tension on it. From there, then we remove the rest of the chains that are holding it down onto the roller, and then we can lift it up, push the roller out, and set it back down on the ground. We're going to actually dismantle the transmissions away from the engines while it's on the ground. It's pretty easy. You undo the bell housing bolts, make sure the torque converter bolts are out, and you just slowly wiggle the transmission away. Sometimes you have to get a pry bar in there to break it away, because there are dowel pins that hold the transmission in place alignment-wise, but that's really all there is to it. And from there, you can store the transmission if you want to put it in a corner, or if you can fit it underneath in one of those giant red cabinets, that's fine. Just make sure we are safe about everything we do. Do not use an engine hoist if you're not comfortable. If you've never used one before, call me over and I will show you. I have to be there anyway, just to make sure everyone's being safe around the area. Safety glasses is a must, because you never know when something can break off and launch in your eye. If you're not wearing safety glasses today, remember, I kick you out. That's simple. 4 points off your final grade, and you're out, and I'll see you tomorrow. Unexcused absence. Everyone must wear safety glasses. So, There we go. All right. So next order of business. Once you have the transmission apart from the engine, you're ready to go, you're ready to reassemble, guess what? This guy turns into a transformer. What you're going to do next is you're going to take these two attachments off that it was sitting on before. So all you have to do is simply ta-da! All right, next. Now we are going to start the transformation. So yesterday I had a group go up with me back to where we stored the engines, and we got these adapters on here. These adapters turn into an engine stand. So what they do is the one red part slides onto one end, and then there is a pivoting bar, that guy, that actually pivots, and it has sort of like an arm assembly that attaches where the transmission bolts went before. And that will hold your engine for the remainder of the reconditioning process. So the way that goes is like this. And there we go. That's really all there is to it. You don't really need much more than that. You might have to come to me for extra long bolts so it can thread into the original transmission bolt holes so the engine can support it. They are longer bolts than normal, and I believe I have most of them on my desk or in the bin where we got them from up top. But that's where a lot of you are going to be, or you're waiting on. Like I said, we can take the cylinder heads off way before this, so half of you will be working on cylinder heads, and half of you will be working on getting this assembly on here. Once you get that far, then you're going to tell me what your game plan is from then on. Maybe I'll tell you guys, take the cylinder heads off and start disassembling bottom end. Bottom end, you're going to need some tools. You're going to need some puller tools, not just for the crankshaft pulley, but for the sprocket that's on the inside there, that guy. You're going to need to also remove that so you can get the oil pump and the crankshaft out once you start disassembling the bottom end. Just make sure, do not skip any steps. Do not skip any measurements that you need to take beforehand. So don't forget that. You'll probably be doing leak downs if you haven't done that the day before as well. There's about to be a part 4 video coming up really shortly. I'm going to switch from being over here to over near the bench. And we're going to talk about those of you who are either waiting for an engine hoist, or you're working on something slightly different because I told you to, or maybe your engine was seized, so I gave you a different route to take. This video coming up is for you guys. Well, not just you, anyone who's at that point, I guess. I don't know why I said that. Anyway, the next video, we will be on the bench. We'll talk about resurfacing valve seats, the reconditioning process, taking the valves out with a spring compressor, and a few other tools that we will have at our disposal that are going to be completely foreign to you. You're going to be like, what is that? So that'll be the next video. Once again, if you like this video, hit that like button and subscribe. I'll see you next time.